My dad slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "You act like this family owes you everything, but you've never done a thing to earn your place here." Then he told me to get out if I wanted to be so independent. So I did. A month later, my mom called, panicked. Why was the mortgage declined? I just replied, "Guess the one who never earned their place was paying for yours." Then I watched the house fall apart. Just like the family inside, T.M., Y name's Nolan, and I turned 24 a few months ago. I used to think my family was normal. Messy, sure, but normal in that sitcom kind of way, the kind where people yell a lot but still hug it out at the end of the day. Turns out, sitcoms don't prepare you for the night your dad slams his fist on the dinner table and tells you that you've never earned your place in this family. That night changed everything. But the truth is, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was just the last straw in a pile that had been building since I was old enough to realize some people only love you when it's convenient that I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone. My parents, Alan and Marjorie, were the kind of couple people admired, or at least pretended to. Dad was a contractor, the type who could build a house from the ground up, and Mom was a real estate agent who could turn any conversation into a networking opportunity. Together, they had my older brother, Ethan, and me. Ethan was 3 years older, taller, better looking, and somehow always right. The golden boy. The one who could crash the car and still get pat on the back because at least he's honest about it. Meanwhile, if I forgot to take out the trash once, I'd get a week-long lecture about responsibility and gratitude. Growing up, it felt like living under two different sets of rules. Ethan's mistakes were learning experiences, but mine were disappointments. I learned early to keep my head down, stay quiet, and work hard. I didn't ask for much, not money, not favors, not even help with college applications. When I finally left for college, I paid for it myself. Scholarships, part-time jobs, whatever it took. My parents called it wanting independence. I called it survival that I got my degree in finance and managed to land a decent job right out of school. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to rent a small apartment and keep up with my student loans. I visited home occasionally, usually for holidays, but the visits always ended the same way, with some comment from Dad about how I thought I was better than everyone else just because I moved out. I'd laugh it off, smile, and then go back to my apartment where I could finally breathe. But last summer, things changed. Dad's contracting business started slowing down, and Ethan had just moved back home after his third failed startup attempt. Suddenly, I wasn't just the independent one. I was the one they started calling when bills got tight, that IT began small. Mom asked if I could temporarily help with their electric bill. Then the next month, it was the car insurance. By the third month, she was casually asking if I could just pay it directly since it was easier that way. I knew what was happening. I was becoming their safety net. The same family that once told me I was too good for them now needed me to keep their lights on. Still, I helped. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of some leftover hope that they'd finally see I wasn't the selfish one they made me out to be. It's not like I was rolling in money, but I could afford to help. And honestly, it felt good to be useful. But I didn't expect how quickly they'd start acting like it was owed to them. Mom would call me every few days to check in, but it always circled back to something she needed. Dad barely said thank you. And Ethan acted like I was just contributing to our family fund. He'd laugh and say, "Hey, you're finally pulling your weight, little brother." I started to resent every call, every request, every fake smile. Then came the night of the dinner, the one that still plays in my head like a bad recording. I'd gone home for Mom's birthday because she made me promise to. The house felt smaller than I remembered, maybe because the tension filled every corner. Ethan had just announced he was starting another business, this time a crypto consulting agency, and my parents were practically glowing with pride. Dad raised his glass to him, bragging about how Ethan never gives up. I forced a smile, but couldn't stop thinking about the months of bills I'd quietly covered while Ethan blew through his savings chasing big ideas. When Mom turned to me and asked, "So, Nolan, are you finally saving for something real, like a house?" I said, "Yeah, actually, I've been looking into getting one soon." I didn't mean it as a jab, but Dad's smile froze. "A house? On your own?" he said, like I'd confessed a crime. "That's ambitious." Mom chimed in, "Well, Maybe wait a bit until the market settles down. Or you could get something closer to home. Help out more around here. The way she said help out didn't sound like a suggestion. It sounded like an order to try to stay calm. I think I've helped out plenty already, I said. Ethan laughed. Oh, come on. Don't act like you're carrying the family, dude. You're just doing your part. Dad nodded. Exactly. Family means everyone contributes. That was when something in me cracked. I looked at them, all three, and realized they genuinely believed I owed them. Not gratitude, not love, money. Dad leaned forward and said, "You act like this family owes you something, but you've never earned your place here." It hit harder than I expected. Maybe because I'd spent my whole life trying to earn that place that I asked, "What do you mean by that?" He slammed his fist on the table so hard the silverware jumped. You think you're better than us because you got a fancy degree and a job in the city? When it comes down to it, this family carried you. We raised you. You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for us. My mom didn't say a word. Ethan just sat there smirking like he'd already won something. I felt heat rise in my chest. That slow, burning anger that comes when someone twists the truth so far you start doubting your own memory. I've been helping pay your mortgage for months, Dad. I said. He shot back. Because you owe us that much. You think you got where you are without us. The words hung in the air, heavy and ugly. And then he said it. The line that would echo in my head for weeks after. If you want to be so independent, then get out. Don't come back here expecting anything from us. I stood up. My chair scraped against the tile loud enough to make Mom flinch. Okay, I said quietly. I won't. I grabbed my jacket, walked out, and didn't look back. That I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd call the next day to apologize. But they didn't. Not after a week. Not after two. Just silence. And in that silence, I made a decision. One that would come back to haunt them in ways they never saw coming. It started with a single phone call, a few numbers on a screen that would change everything. But before I made that call, I needed to make sure I could live with what was about to happen. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. It's patient. It's the sound of everything they took for granted slowly slipping through their fingers. That was the night I started planning. The days after that dinner felt strangely calm. Almost too calm, like the eye of a storm still circling overhead. I remember sitting in my apartment the next morning, staring at my phone, half expecting a text from Mom. Something simple. Maybe your father didn't mean it, or let's talk this through. But nothing came. No apology. Not even a missed call. I told myself I was fine with that I didn't need them to reach out. But the truth is, silence can be its own kind of noise. It hums at the back of your mind until you start wondering if you're the problem after all. So I threw myself into work. Stayed late. Volunteered for extra projects. Anything to drown out the ache. My job was steady. Good pay, quiet office. People who smile because they wanted to, not because they needed something. I like that. I even started saving more aggressively, thinking about that house I mentioned at dinner. Something modest, 2 bedrooms, maybe a little outside the city. Somewhere peaceful, the kind of place I never got to grow up in. Then, about 3 weeks after that argument, I got a text from Mom out of nowhere. Hey, sweetheart, can we talk later today? Your father's been under a lot of stress. Maybe you could call. And no apology. Not even a hint of what had happened. Just a polite request wrapped in guilt. I stared at the message for a good 5 minutes before replying. Sure. When I called, Dad didn't pick up. Mom did. She launched right into her usual warm but calculated tone. Hi, honey. How are you? We haven't heard from you. I told your father you must have been busy with work. I have been, I said. You could have called too. She sighed, like I'd just confirmed something she already believed. You know how stubborn your father is. He just feels disappointed. He didn't mean what he said. You know how he gets when he feels disrespected. I almost laughed. Disrespected? He told me I didn't earn my place in the family. Yes, but you know he didn't mean that literally, she said. He was frustrated. Things have been tight around here, and he feels like he's losing control of the household. You know how men are. I bit my tongue so hard it hurt. It was the same excuse I'd heard my entire life. You know how your father is. Translation, he's allowed to hurt you as long as he feels bad about it later. Then she added, anyway, Ethan's been doing so well lately. His new business is really starting to take off. He's got 2 clients already. One of them's a company out of Miami. Isn't that exciting? It wasn't, but I said, good for him. Oh, and he's been helping your dad around the house too. Fixing things, painting, just being such a blessing to have home again. That was the thing about my mom. She always had a way of slipping Ethan into every conversation, like she was afraid I'd forget who the favorite was. I let her talk, let her gush about his maturity, until finally she got to the real reason she'd called. So listen, she said, her tone softening into that near whisper she used whenever she wanted something. We're having a small family dinner next weekend. Just the 4 of us. I think it would mean a lot if you came. Your father's been calmer lately. I think you two just need to clear the air. It was tempting to say no, but something in me wanted closure, or maybe validation. I wanted to see if there was even a chance they could treat me like a son again, not a walking ATM. So I said yes. When I pulled up at the house that Saturday, I noticed Ethan's new car parked in the driveway, a shiny black Tesla with personalized plates that read ETH1. I stood there for a second, trying not to laugh. This was the same guy who'd borrowed money from me last year to invest in crypto. Mom greeted me at the door like nothing had happened, hugging me a little too tightly. Oh, honey, you look great. The city life suits you. Thanks, I said. Nice car out front. Her eyes lit up. Isn't it beautiful? Ethan finally treated himself. He deserves it after everything he's been through. The house smelled like roast chicken and mashed potatoes. Homey, familiar, disarming. For a second, I almost felt like a kid again, until reality reminded me who I was dealing with. Dad sat at the head of the table and gave me a curt nod. Ethan strolled in a minute later, grinning. Hey, city boy, decided to bless us with your presence. We made small talk until Dad steered the conversation to money. Your mother tells me you got a raise recently. I did, I said cautiously. That's good. We've had a rough year. Your brother's been helping a lot. So we thought everyone could pitch in again until things stabilize. Mom jumped in. Just support. Maybe cover the mortgage for a couple months while we sort things out. I set my fork down. You mean money? You're talking like it's a loan, Dad said. Family doesn't keep score. Funny, I said, because I've never seen you this generous with Ethan. You have no idea how much we've done for you, Dad snapped. The least you can do is help. You wouldn't even have your job if we hadn't supported you. Supported me? I repeated. I paid my own tuition, my own rent. Ethan smirked. Who raised you? Who gave you a roof? Something in me snapped. I built myself in spite of you. I stood up. Thanks for dinner. Enjoy your Tesla, Ethan. I left, and something inside me hardened. The guilt burned away. I saw them clearly, not as parents, but people who'd drain me dry if I let them. That a few days later, Mom called. Same line. Your father didn't mean it. He's stressed with the mortgage. Could you help cover this month's payment? That's when I realized something. Years ago, I'd co-signed their refinance to help them get a better rate. I kept the mortgage papers in a folder labeled family that I didn't say anything. I read every clause, every renewal condition. As I dug through the fine print, a quiet plan took shape, meticulous and patient. They've been counting on my guilt. This time, I wouldn't just walk away. I'd make them feel what it was like to lose what they'd taken for granted. 2 weeks later, the unraveling began, soft at first, like a thread pulled from a sweater. I kept up the normal stuff, work, simple dinners, jogging. But underneath I watched, carefully. The moment I saw their mortgage status flag pending review, I knew my window was opening. I hadn't planned revenge, not yet. At first, it was curiosity. I just wanted to see how bad things were. But curiosity turned into clarity when I found something worse. The letter from my bank said there was unusual activity on one of my credit lines. I only had one card, paid off monthly. So I called. The rep was polite, but confused. Sir, you have another active card. Hardware stores, car dealerships, an appliance outlet. Opened jointly with an Alan Grayson. My father. I sat there gripping the phone, so tight my knuckles went white. You're saying my father opened a credit line in my name? Yes, sir. The application lists you as the primary. We can start a fraud report, but maybe confirm with him first. It could be a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, right? My father accidentally signed my name and charged thousands to it. That I hung up and sat in silence. I wanted to call him, demand answers, but something told me not to. Instead, I drove to their house the next morning.